Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Eric Swartz, Web3 tycoon and head of Web3 at Sterlington. Please join in welcoming my close friend, illust founder, Rob McCarty. Introduce yourself, bud.
What's up, everyone? I'm Rob. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of illust. We're like a Pokemon Go for culture, and yeah, we're excited to be on the podcast.
And as always, I have my co-host with me, Elijah Levine from Black Mountain. Can you introduce yourself, Eli?
Yes, sir. How's it going, guys? Stoked to be here and talking with Rob today. That is one heck of a tagline that we're really excited to dive into and understand just what that means.
Super excited to have you on, bud. I can't wait to talk all about your project. I've been sort of waiting for a project like illust for a very long time. I work with a lot of GameFi projects, a lot of founders within the gaming industry generally, and something that has kind of been like the holy grail of the space is like the Pokemon Go technological feat, so that you can have your community have like a real world intermingled experience. And so been thinking about this for a super long time, and just so when I met you, I was just like so excited because I was like, wow, someone actually did it. Like, this is incredible. And so I would love to hear a little bit more about that journey and about your journey before, as you are a serial media company founder and have kind of been in this media company startup world for a very long time, having really successful exits, and also having just built a ton of experience working on startups in media in LA, right in the thick of it.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting ride. I think, I kind of set in the context. I think AR, the original AR, alternative reality, has been around for a while. I mean, you have geocaching, you have like Cicada Group doing these like cool mixed reality types of games, transmedia games with people across online and physical. You have like Sleep No More in New York City that, brings people into this environment, and you're going through this different like live action role play. So the idea of kind of using environment to create stories and then peppering technology in with it is something that I've been interested for a long time. So, we're really excited about what can be done in this framework. And yeah, so I mean, LA being the entertainment capital, as well as entertainment, but also entertainment tech. And I think that's been really exciting for us because Snap was kind of like the first leader that planted their flag saying, hey, there's this thing that you can do with your phone called face filters, or actually, excuse me, face lenses. And you can do these lenses that can augment your face. So you had this huge creator ecosystem that came out to the West Side in LA, who were looking to build out these graphics on behalf of on the Snap platform. And then soon enough, we're like, well, what if you could do this? And what if you do this? And then it started to evolve. And fortunately, we're kind of in that groundswell and been able to figure out some different ways of applying similar ideas.
Amazing, man. And so I guess what I always kind of come back to when I think about illust and I think about your guys' trajectory is like the uses for this are just very, very limitless. And it isn't really about gaming per se. The experiences that you can build, and I mean, to give you the audience some context on Eric and Eric's home life, my wife is a food marketer, and I can just think of countless ways that Emma would love to use this product. So like I think that there's a lot when it comes to in-person events and in-person experiences that you can build with illust well beyond gaming. So would love for you to kind of like talk people through some of the really exciting partnerships that you have in that vein and generally.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's a blessing and a curse. It's a good problem to have. There's so many ideas, but keeping the focus of like, which vertical are we going to really try and win out? And where can we deploy this technology that adds incremental, if not transformative, value to our partners? And so I think and it's in kind of the sci-fi view of things, we've always kind of looked at like, well, what about going through a mall and you have this hologram come out saying, here's about this product. So I think maybe that's like Minority Report or what have you, but we actually did a version of that with the Four Seasons earlier this year, where we had it was in their art gallery, and we had the curator of the art gallery record a hologram video that was then deployed through our system. So as you went through the art gallery, you had this curator talking about each work of art with a really personalized discussion about the set, the setting, the environment, the materials, the creation story. And it ended up leading to greater purchase intent from the people who were visiting. In fact, we ended up selling one of the Picasso pieces in the building from that gallery tour. But it also creates unique user-generated content, a lot of discussions, people young and old playing around with the tech, just really bringing a lot of new life into a setting that is already social in nature. So that was kind of one area we're kind of looking at galleries as a way to help kind of move people through the gallery so that they could have almost like a progress bar, if you will, of like seeing everything that might be in the museum or in the gallery is one vertical that we're really trying to explore. So gallery museums. And then the other side of this is what we're really trying to do is make the metaverse come to life in AR. So it's basically bringing the power of the metaverse to Main Street. And so by doing that, like augmented reality is, and just as a quick refresher, we're talking about device mobile side AR, not necessarily headset VR, but mobile device AR, because everyone has one. They could be able to start rendering graphics that were potentially deployed for a desktop or a VR setting, but in the native environment of where they're standing. So you might be at a coffee shop and you'll have, this artwork by cause or someone, show up or whatever the implementation is. So we actually started doing more like pop-ups and experiential, where we're bringing, so at Sonar Festival a couple weeks ago, we're working with this artist Max Cooper, and he had these generative art pieces that people could go explore the city of Barcelona. And through this like guided tour, there was a reward at the end of the tunnel. So there's a couple of different activations.
Incredible, man. And I mean, like to partner with a company like a company that in the hospitality industry like your partner is just almost, I don't know. I don't know any startups that have accomplished that. So just congratulations straight up. And also, like, what did you guys learn about kind of the enterprise use cases for the tech, and how has that kind of evolved into next steps for the build?
Totally. I think it's a pocket that we have Apple to thank, because they've been pouring millions of dollars into this concept of spatial computing, and they did their big announcement. And they planted their flag saying, like, this is V0 of our mixed reality implementation. Us as one of the biggest companies in the world, if not the biggest. I think they're the best. They actually are the biggest. They're investing in this technology heavily. And so as a marketer, as a business owner, as someone that brings people through your doors, you're trying to figure out new ways to engage an already minimally attentive audience. And so something like mixed reality that actually brings people into the scene is one of the best engagement tools for an artist, for a celebrity, for a business, for really anyone that's looking to capture someone's attention. And we're seeing it just on the time and the experience. But we're seeing, almost every experience, the average is north of a minute per experience, where if you're scrolling through social, it's gonna be 3 seconds or less. So like just the fact that we're able to capture attention really mean that's really valuable for a marketer, or that's really valuable for a festival, where you want also people to experience all the different aspects of what you're putting together, what your team has been working on for the last 6 to 8 months for a concert festival. You want everyone to be able to get the most out of it. So by using AR and using kind of like these scavenger hunt like components, you can help guide your visitors through an experience that's like living it up to the fullest at your event, while giving them something that's fun, exciting, engaging along the way.
I love it, man. And like leading people through a experience like that must have been really incredible. And especially like I would just imagine the constraints that you must have had and like the level of execution that was demanded was extremely high. So I just think the product really stands the test. And I think that's something interesting that I would point out, just because there are very, very few AR in use technologies, and Illusts is exactly that. So unlike Meta's failed experiment, Illust is actually out there creating these experiences. Like folks are actually using this, and it's super exciting from all perspectives to me, but also just I think super important for the space, because if you don't have the ability to build games of this complexity relatively easily and experiences of this complexity relatively easily, it's going to make it not the same type of metaverse that I think everyone's expecting. You know, everyone's hoping to really just take it as far as they can, and I don't want to ever think that folks will be like eliminated from the space. And I know, Rob, it's super important for you from that perspective, like to make sure that folks can really access this tech.
100%. I mean, I got into the space through VR first. VR was my first love, and the thing that was so frustrating about VR was that when you had to bring it to marketing sense, and when working with, so I was working with record labels to produce these like musical compositions, or like a music video / music biography, and we would get like 50,000 views, which for VR is fucking great. Excuse me, I don't know if I can swear on this, but it's great. And but at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, if you're spending, you know, say 50 to 75K on a piece of content, the active visibility, like the numbers you're trying to hit is at least 5 million on YouTube. So that's the thing where it's like 50,000 versus 5 million. It's really hard to justify the ROI with VR when you have people that need to have this specific headset and have to go through the experience. Don't get me wrong, those 50,000 will never forget that experience, because that's what VR does. It creates presence and all the psychological factors of it. But at the same time, so that's where I shift my focus to thinking about, well, maybe mobile-based AR where everyone has a device. That's going to be the area where we could be able to, there's zero friction. And if we build, as we're building illust in the browser, we eliminate pretty much any friction there is for a user to be able to go and immediately jump into the metaverse, whether they know it's the metaverse or not, that they could be able to have maybe their first experience with this engaging types of content, and then be invested, and then kind of come into our world.
I love it. I love it. And the idea of everyone entering the space through technology like illust is exactly what I've been most excited about for a really long time. I mean, I think media is definitely the place where we'll see adoption, and I've been following that thread for a really long time, and I think that the only way to bring brands to the metaverse is to make them be able to use this technology in new and unique ways that actually amplify what they're already doing. And I think what you do, Rob, is really, really great in doing that. And it really does amplify everything they're already doing in a way that they can utilize it for their in-person experiences, but and not just in-person experiences, also gaming and even like, for instance, like virtual meeting experiences too. Like you can have a lot of fun using this tech, and I'm just really, really excited for it. And your experiments, and I think that this really goes well into the next question I wanted to ask you, because you know, your experiments with VR helped people see that art could be created through the VR tech. What was your favorite piece that you did for entertainment, and what was the favorite piece that you created for business?
Yeah, definitely. So in the VR world, see, the VR experience that I was probably most proud of is this short series called The Fortress. And it was this idea that so what we did was, so I interviewed one of the producers for the ASAP Mob and got to go into his studio, and we got to like go to these like really like important places of creation in his story, and we brought them to life. So I brought a 360 camera, but then we had like animations over the video, and then we did like a whole every video that we did like a big release. So usually it'd be a performance from the artist that I was interviewing. So you'd like watch so we had all these VR headsets in the room. You go in, watch the video about the artist, tell the story, and then after you got to really connect with the artist, and the artist would put a performance on for a select group of people. And so that was I think that was my first passion project in the space, and that's what got me hooked. So I'd have to say that's my favorite on the creative side, kind of jumping into immersive tech. And then on the commercial side, at one point we had built out in partnership with the University of Southern California, and this is a VR experience to be deployed for diversity, inclusion, equity training. And so I got to be one of the VR developers that worked on the project, and really working at how can we use technology to enhance our perspective taking and think about things that are maybe internal or subconscious and bring them to light through technology. And so that was the thing on the enterprise side, just seeing how powerful these mediums are for impacting change and impressions and getting people to think differently is something that I definitely carry with me into what we're doing with AR and AR production.
Absolutely, man. And I mean, it shows, like it really does show. I think at the end of the day, the traction that you guys have already built is amazing. And my next question for you, of course, is what partnerships are you working on? I know recently you were here in New York. We had breakfast. It was incredible. But now we must know, like, what are you guys rolling out soon? What's next for illust, and how can we and the community be helpful?
Totally. So what I can talk about and what I can't talk about, I'm trying to make sure I skirt the lines appropriately here, especially with the NDAs. So we have a project that's going to be, I'll speak a little bit vague, but major hip hop artist, 50 years of hip hop. We're going to be doing a touring gallery using the technology as a way to loop in retail partners, and also the like iconic imagery from the 50 years of hip hop. And so through that process, it's going to be kind of a blend of like it's a traveling AR gallery. So it's going to be physical. There's going to be augmentations within the gallery for people who are visiting, little rewards for people who complete all the different experiences. But then we're going to be able to package that gallery up and deploy it and geofence it at our retail partners. So some of these retail partners have 30 locations. So they'll be getting special slices from the gallery to be anchored at their businesses to drive foot traffic and bring people into something that could be a really cool cultural event. So that's something that I think I was able to tiptoe around without going too far into disclosures. So that's the big one that we're working on right now, as well as there's a couple tours that are going to be coming up that we're supporting the artists that are on, as well as some bigger events as well that are like festival types that we're supporting. So we're again, galleries, pop-up installations, retail, and experiential. Like those are kind of the four pillars that we're finding a lot of value for our customers in.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are redefining what it is to kind of have an events business and to have in-person events, and it's incredible to see. And
thanks so much, Rob. Hey, I just have one more question for you. One thing that really struck my attention as you were talking was how Apple has really laid the foundation for a lot of this groundwork in developing AR, VR, and kind of the next gen tech that we're seeing. And of course, the latest unveiling of Vision Pro really confirmed that and captured a lot of people's interest. I'm curious, like, what your firm has been doing to kind of get ahead of that One of my friends has been building an AR VR metaverse stuff for like 7 years, and he's just like, super fascinated and has talked so much about how big of an opportunity it is to develop software around Vision Pro, with the assumption that so many people are going to have that and kind of be using it in their everyday lives.
100%. No, that's a great question. I think first that again, Apple being a player in this space creates so much awareness for the technology, and they're putting a lot of money into marketing the value proposition of this technology for really consumers and enterprise. So I think just the lift that's going to come from that is going to be really big. How we're going to quote unquote capitalize on this lift, so we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We got into this space, and as it sounds like your friend had gone into this space because we're passionate about building in this new storytelling medium. And so there are certain like tactical things that we can do to make sure that our technology can be compatible with the Vision Pro. So there's definitely some business strategy and some like implementations that we're going to do to make sure that we can fully optimize around a new user base coming into the tech. But I think for us as a company, we want to help support those who are just starting to realize that AR VR is something that could be a value for our business. So we want to help coach people and help kind of hold their hand through the process of figuring out, because there's also little headline, but I mean it should have been a massive headline. Adobe and Adobe, Aero, and Google partnered up, and Google Maps partnered up for their own geospatial computing software that they just deployed. And so that's their own publishing suite that IKEA just did a big brand activation in, I think it was Tompkins Square Park or one of the parks in New York. And but that's another opportunity for people to get involved, is to use that suite. So there's pros and cons to every technology, and throwing our hat into the ring, we're not an application, we're in the browser, so we get a lot more accessibility. And that's why also we're Web3, we're also a Web3 company. And so the idea of siloing things off into an application doesn't necessarily jive with what our value proposition is. We want people to be able to place content at a location, and if you're, say, in a different application, be able to still know that placement of that content is coming from the provenance of the individual that placed it. Whereas like right now, if you're a creator, you got to publish to Facebook, you got to publish to Snap, you're taking a non-fungible token and you're diluting it across 7 different platforms with 7 different placements, which kind of undermines the value proposition of being in one single asset. So I'm going a little bit off track, but it's coming back. I'll come back around. But basically, this idea of geospatial provenance, I think, is going to be a really big problem of the future. And so what we're trying to do in the background, the less sexy stuff that we're doing on the infrastructure side, is we're working with other founders that are in this spatial computing play, so that we can build out some basic guidelines in a registry. So if there's an NFT that you own or a digital asset that's on-chain that you own, that you want it to have an address in the physical world, there could be a protocol that you can upload and submit it to that imbues it with spatial provenance, so that it could be referenced in other metaverses that are building AR, be competitive or collaborative with us, but we can all reference one asset to be across multiple metaverses, which I think is really important for this new introduction with the Apple Vision Pro, is that we don't want to have too much things siloed in our Web3 maximalism.
No, totally. That interoperability is huge. And I don't think there's enough people focusing on that, because like you said, it's like kind of the dirty work, like the behind the scenes under the hood, nitty gritty. But it's really important because, once everyone, or from the consumers, they want the best experience possible. They want the seamless interoperability, but it takes years and years of very diligent research and building to actually make that a possibility for the consumer.
And on the other side of that, and you nailed it right there, the other side is, so I'm talking about a lot of the publishing aspects of it. But there's a whole nother can of worms, which is the privacy of the user who's engaging with the experience, with what's published. So that's another area that gets us really fired up. And it's kind of part of this collective of other founders that we're talking to. And like, how can we use ZKs and how can we use some of these technologies in Web3 as a way to protect the identity of people who engage at a given place at a given time? Because that could be super sensitive information. It's like, oh yeah, I know this. It's like the tracking Elon's jet on steroids. So if we had a way to be able to protect the user, but still get the value out of people claiming proof tokens as they engage with things in space, then we can also create a more equitable system that is not going to be as pliable or as, I guess, attackable as Zuckerberg centralized servers.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. We just kind of talked about this in our quarterly letter about how like so much of blockchain right now is way more centralized than people notice. Like ETH, for example, is 70% or 70% of ETH's total network is stored on centralized servers, 30% on AWS alone. And so, you know, it kind of goes back to that, like, okay, who's building the real tech and what sort of use cases does that tech have across different platforms? How easy is it to use with different platforms? So I think it's like a really exciting time to be building stuff like this.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think there's people who are willing to pay for it, which is helpful for at least attracting talent. And you can build in Web3 and you can also build in AR. And when you're talking to brands, like some brands are very standoffish sometimes. We're like, we're talking to an organization, can't mention it, but let's just say FTX was their underlying sponsor. And we were talking to them and they're like, you can say digital collectible all you want, but you can't say NFT and you can't say anything about Web3. We're like, that's fine. Like that's the engine that's deploying the experiences. It's like, I go to visit my friend's house. He's not gonna be talking about how good his plumbing is. We expect the plumbing to work. You know, it's a nice house. So, you know, I hope that we look at, you know, that, yes, I mean, when we talk within our inner circles, we love to nerd out about Web3 and like the specific composition of how we're making our apps. But at the end of the day, the customers just want to make sure it works and it works better.
Certainly. Yeah, well, really interesting stuff, Rob. Thanks so much again for coming on.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing it with us, Rob. We really appreciate it, and we just want to support illust in every way we can. So if there's anything you want us to share, just let us know. We'll include it in the notes. And again, thank you so much for coming on. Web3, we hope you join us next time to continue our journey unraveling the mysteries and exploring the limitless possibilities of the new internet.